The title of my presentation for you today should actually be the importance of Ukrainian music in a cultural approach to diplomacy. To all of the people who are here today, I'm so inspired to see all of you here because we are all driven by one common desire: to make this world a better place. We use diplomacy to solve problems without resorting to violence. As a representative of arts and culture, I see significant new tendencies and questions of a cultural approach to diplomacy. This short version of my presentation is part of my larger ongoing project, which is called Beyond the Muse, which not only focuses on mentoring young talent, but also on producing meaningful artistic presentations that address important issues of today. Since the start of the war, all of my focus has turned to highlighting Ukrainian culture through music. As creatives, it is now more important than ever to be ambassadors of truth through the means of our unique language of communication. But before I go on, even though I don't speak German, I can speak Bach. Bach's music has always been a symbol of deep spirituality, the ultimate celebration of the depth, complexity, and beauty of our spirit in context of the entire universe and our connection to a higher power. To me, it is the moment of equilibrium and an indicator of how we fit into the world around us. And here's the excerpt from Sonata Number 1 for solo violin. Music does not unite, not on its own. Yes, it is a powerful language of emotion, capable of getting through, especially where the words can stop short. In a world of twisted information and corrupted perspectives, though, one can lose the ability to see the truth, even through music. Music can also be weaponized and turned into propaganda. So, what makes music and art this powerful? The intention and meaning behind it. Let me demonstrate this in a simple example of 3 notes. You can play the same 3 notes in multiple different ways. So here's one. Number 2. So, everything in music has intention, as we can see. We can play the same 3 notes with different emphasis and change their meaning completely. Just like anything we do, whether it's writing, film, policy making, nearly everything that requires creative and critical thinking and its application, and demands intention first and foremost. And the emphasis of this intent is extremely important to the young generation here. Many of you will be leaders someday, and I urge you to take the responsibility to always be well informed on the issues you present to the public, because the intention behind your message can make or break opinions, and therefore make or break the world around you. Today, our society faces many problems that were already expressed here in multiple ways. But the question seems to keep coming back to the same point: the need to return to preserving our morality, to uplift and protect our humanity, which means there has to be the right, truthful intention behind all we do. Now, the big question of today is, how do we find the right path? How do we guide our intentions to be noble, to serve the greater good, and to make true positive change? The short answer is quite simple. Do not lose the guiding compass we all have, our conscious. Connecting our spirituality to the higher power which makes us human, which distinguishes us from basic animalistic tendencies. I've heard many speakers at this forum talking on the issues of Ukraine, and many were well informed, as it is their responsibility, but unfortunately there were some who ignored some important facts. Speaking on many current issues of Ukraine, it is easy to ignore the whole picture of who Ukraine is, its soul, and what defines it. One of the main components of it is its cultural heritage. There is a reason why so few people know that side of Ukraine. Aside from the constant ripping apart of Ukraine through the past few centuries and by many countries, it has gone through one of the most terrifying destructions, Stalin's deliberate genocide by hunger in 1933. His main objective? To break the Ukrainian spirit and rid the nation altogether. No time to go into all of the atrocities caused under that order alone, but it was not the first, neither it was last. Over 10 million people died by this deliberate hunger in the country that is the breadbasket of Europe. The regions affected by mass deaths most were repopulated by ethnic Russians. So why do we highlight Ukrainian composers and creatives today, and why is it so important and more important than ever? Today, the nation is surviving its second genocide. Not just the war. The objective is yet again to destroy Ukrainians not only physically, but mainly spiritually. Now the Tchaikovsky question. Tchaikovsky became a loose household term and a sort of symbol for Russian culture that is widely celebrated around the world, into which Moscow has always been investing significant costs and subsidizing such promotions. With all of the respect to Russian music, literature, and works of art that I myself grew up studying in depth, often for the reasons of sheer default coming from the Soviet regime, let me clarify the issue of celebrating this Russian heritage today in the context of war. There are many opinions of ill-informed commentators on Tchaikovsky being harmless on its own. And yes, I personally have nothing against the composer. But indeed, today and even before, Tchaikovsky and any Russian art really, just like the church, was weaponized by the state agenda. How? By being turned into propaganda, and shockingly enough, it was even used to celebrate the recent mass killings of innocent lives on fresh ruins of bombed and destroyed cities. Gergiev, a conductor who even until recently worked as the chief conductor in Munich, is one of many current examples. Notorious for these so-called historic performances, not just now in the Ukrainian war, but also in Syria and other politically strategic places, he led and continues to lead performances as Putin's right hand in celebrations of Russia's victories. So, please beware today when you're told that music or art in the context of war can stand aside and be neutral. It simply can't. We artists live by expressing and putting the world through ourselves and expressing what we feel and what the world around us feels. And at the moment, we feel grief. So, how can we celebrate Russian culture at the moment when they are brutally trying to destroy human life, mass murdering children and elderly, raping women, all because they're Ukrainian? Does this terrorizing of Western world values indicate the right time to celebrate Russian culture? And what exactly do we choose to amplify today? Ukrainian arts and cultural heritage has survived and carries on despite being continuously destroyed and misappropriated over decades and centuries. But it has not been given a chance on the world stage the attention it deserves as of today. Russia's oppression and murder of any intellectual and a visionary that presented Ukrainian spirit in their works had been carried out continuously. Thousands of poets, composers, filmmakers, writers, and thinkers were mass murdered or sent off to Siberia for life sentences just for being Ukrainian. A proof? Tell me one composer you know from Germany, France, even Poland, which was also under the regime for a while. You're all well-rounded and educated here. You'll probably say Bach, Debussy, Chopin. Now, tell me at least one Ukrainian composer you know. Anybody? Or writer? That's right. Ukraine doesn't have any. Ukrainians were forced to believe from an early age that their language and culture was subpar. It was either forbidden or shameful to be or speak Ukrainian. I experienced it firsthand. That way, we all would always talk about Tchaikovsky and call him the greatest, but never be aware of Ukrainian composers like Bortnyansky, Vedel, dating back to 1700s, or Lysenko, the founder of Ukrainian Romantic era, and actually an inspiration to Tchaikovsky, but we never heard of him. Here's a fact about Tchaikovsky, who is, by the way, Ukrainian by blood, and many of his works use Ukrainian melodies as main themes. Just a side note. When he saw the opera that Ukrainian composer Mykola Lysenko wrote, he was determined to push its production in Moscow, where he had popularity and political graces at the time. But he told Lysenko that one minor detail would need to be changed. It would need to be in Russian. Without hesitation, Lysenko answered, "But my opera is in Ukrainian, and that's the essence of it." Naturally, it never saw the light of day until many years after his death, so he never heard his own music. Today, I leave you with one short piece written by Myroslava Khomik, Ukrainian composer, modern, that became quite iconic. The composer with his family was deported to Siberia when he was 15 and miraculously survived and came back to his native city of Lviv. He wrote a wealth of musical works, starting with film music and finishing with symphonies and operas. This is a short excerpt from the movie High Pass. Maybe some of you have heard about it if there are movie makers here, on which famous director Parajanov collaborated with Skorik. And he asked him to express in this music everything he could not put into his film because of the harsh state censorship. Here's the melody.